Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Eleanor. I just finished this book on the calculation of volume by Solvej, I think it's pronounced Solvej Balle. What an excellent book. I've already bought the second one. Wow, love it. So I thought I'd better quickly just talk about my initial feelings, because I think what's interesting about this is that, look, you can go anywhere and very easily find out that this is a kind of, what are the booktubers or reviewers saying? It's a Groundhog Day idea, which means that time is in a loop and the protagonist is experiencing November 18th over and over again. That's not really what this book is about. Okay, so this is how I'm seeing it. When people say, oh, it's a Groundhog Day, they're referencing the movie Groundhog Day, which came out starring Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell in 1993. Now, I have a lot to say about that movie because when it came out, I was crazy about it, as most people were. I'm a huge Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell fan in any case. But that movie is, I believe, one of the great classic romantic comedies out there. And it has a place in my heart. And I especially love romantic comedies because they use tropes that generally always work. Like at the beginning, you have the meet cute. At the end, you often have one of the partners running towards the other. These are all just, tropes that are very close to my heart and have been done very well by, many different filmmakers and screenwriters. And I should mention, I did find there is I think it's The Guardian that has a review of this book that does mention in detail how Solvej Balle had the idea for this book back in the 80s. And when Groundhog Day came out as a film in 93, she was taken aback, but also she said in an interview somewhere apparently that she was also excited because this was something that she could use, that she could, it's always interesting to see how someone else uses a similar concept. But she had come up with the idea years prior. So in Groundhog Day, you start with the couple they're each very single and very different. This is the meet cute. This is what I live for in rom-coms. They meet, through this idea. She's a journalist, I think. Yeah. And he's the weatherman. And they come together for this Groundhog Day. They're waiting in this small American town for the groundhog to show his face. And they couldn't be more different, but they keep kind of being put together over and over again. On the calculation of volume starts in the opposite direction. You've got a married couple and a man and a woman, it so happens, and they've obviously, look, we don't know exactly how old they are. We don't know exactly how many years they've been married, but it sounds to me like they've been together a while. The point is made that they're close. Now they work together. They both they have an antiquarian book selling company, and they both basically work from home, and they live in this big stone house in France. And there aren't many surprises. Life is good and life goes on. And when, what's her name? Tara. When Tara, she's the one who travels to find the books. And then her husband, Tomas, kind of does the paperwork and mails them, I presume, does some of the communication. So that very setup to me makes everything about this book fantastic. So if it was any other setup, and it took me a while. This book has been talked about for a while, since it was translated from the Danish by Barbara Haviland. And I've been putting it off because, it's, I love a romantic comedy movie, and I love a time loop movie generally, but I don't look for it in my literature per se. And I also feel like, is there anything new under the sun that can be done with this? Well, there is so much. So in any case, back to this idea of being this not old married couple, but experienced married couple. You know each other really well. When you're sitting and having a coffee together, not many romantic surprises are going to happen. But that's not a bad thing. That is really, if you're looking for a relationship, if you're looking for a long-term partner, that's the goal. That's the goal. So what does Solvej Balle do? She has, on this November 18th, she has Tara leave her home and go to the big city. She's going to go to Paris, and she's going to spend a couple of days there. And one of the days is November 18th. So when Tara finds herself in this loop where November 18th repeats over and over again, the setup is that she's away from her husband. And when she returns, she can never go on to the 19th. For her, it's always the 18th. And so every day, if she chooses to return and spend those days, those continuing November and 18th days in the family home with her husband, every time she wakes up on that day, she has to describe her situation once again to her husband, who has no recollection of it because he's not in the loop. And as you can imagine, that gets old very quickly. So at the beginning of the book, at the very, very beginning, it's day 121 of November 18th for Tara. And this is the beginning. There is someone in the house, heard as he moves around the room upstairs, when he gets out of bed or when he goes down the stairs and into the kitchen. There's the gush of water through the pipes when he fills a kettle. And she continues to describe the sounds. And the sounds are, you soon learn, the sounds of her husband as he's going through the same rituals that, it's exact. His day is exactly the same. It's her 121st day. Every one of her days is different for her. And she has decided, you see, to stay downstairs in the guest bedroom, overlooking the woodpile in the backyard. And she's very, very quiet, because when she does make a sound and he does discover her, she's going to have to all over again explain why is it that on the day that he expects to hear from her about the conference she's going to and the booksellers that she's met, that she's actually sleeping in the guest bedroom. Now, anyone who has been in a very long-term relationship, I think, will immediately understand, feel instinctively that the metaphors that are being worked with here are so apt. This idea that one of you may be at a stage where life is normal, and for the other one, something has changed so much, or is changing so much, that you feel distant. It's not, we're not talking about superficial ideas of, we're not talking about, oh, we're falling out of love, or let's get a divorce, or, you don't understand me. We're not talking about all that, garbage, which is always on the surface, and things are much deeper. We're not talking about that. We're talking about two human beings who've lived together for a certain amount of time, who deal with differences because everything's always changing. Sometimes for one person more than another. And we're not talking about affairs or anything like that. It's about normal life without drama that makes you feel like there's a chasm between you. And the sleeping in the guest bedroom, the listening to someone else in the house, the feeling of being extraordinarily intimate and close while also being so far apart. This just took my breath away within the first chapter. Just the setup itself is so miraculous, and I'm so thankful for this book. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is a book about a couple's relationship. What I'm actually saying is it's a book that isn't about a couple's relationship. And that's why it is. So a rom-com is all about the relationship. But because it's always on the surface, it's always going to use the tropes. But if you take the relationship out and you have a female protagonist, now remember, the main character, the protagonist of Groundhog Day is Bill Murray. He's a man constantly going through the same day. Why does he really have to go through the same day? Why do the screenwriters make him do that? It's because he has to change. And why does he have to change? Because he has to find love. And to find love, you have to have that, over and over again. He's cynical, he's a dark character, and he has things to learn. Okay? This is different. What Tara is experiencing is not a trope. It's quite different, and it depends on her way of viewing her life philosophically, and the way she views the world, the actual world around her, physically, as well as, I suppose, spiritually. So I'll give you an example. She's very matter of fact. You're reading her journal, basically, this book. And she's very matter of fact. She doesn't question the fact that she loves Thomas and Thomas loves her. That doesn't come into the equation, okay? But there's something that's come about. She's going in this direction and he's going in this direction. And if she so chooses, she can every day go like this and return to him, go like this, return to him. But that's limited, and it takes a lot of emotional and physical energy to do that. He believes her. It's not a question of him not believing that she's stuck in the one day. But what can he really do in the 24 hours that they have together? Well, they can try to solve the problem. And now you see again, it's coming from the perspective of the married couple. That they believe each other. They work together to solve problems. It's the opposite of the rom-com, right? But as they're working on solving the problem, they realize that they're limited. So in a way, this is like if you go to the deepest couples therapy, maybe, and I suppose if you have a very, very talented couples therapist and you're both working together very, very carefully, you still won't get to the depths of the interesting ideas that come up on the calculation of volume. Now, I should also say while I'm talking about couples and therapy and whatever, but that's just because I've come to that, from my own perspective, and I love it for that. But Tara is not at all, as far as I can tell from her journal, motivated by an idea that she cannot live without Thomas. That's not what it is. She's motivated by a curiosity about the world. She's discovered something about the world that is utterly different and surprising and has affected them both greatly. And she wants to figure it out. I'll leave it at that because I don't want any spoilers. So I finished this book and I feel so happy, and so curious about where it's going to go, because apparently this is going to be a series of 7 books. And I think 5 of them have already been written in Danish. 2 of them have been published. So I did get the second one and I'm about to start it. But in any case, I wanted to make sure to record this particular personal view of what Solvej Balle has done so exquisitely. Okay, bye.